So I was pretty ecstatic when Atmos Audio offered to send me over the SP3, a hi-fi desktop active speaker with a real snot-nose attitude. And I mean that in the nicest way possible. The SP3 positions itself as a strong contender in the realm of affordable desktop speakers, but is it worth a purchase? Let's dive in and find out what these bad boys are all about. Greetings, mate, and welcome aboard. Stuart Charles here, HomeStudioBasics.com, helping you make sound decisions. So, before we get started, like the video, comment, subscribe, hit that bell notification, and heck, even join the Patreon if you really think I'm a funny guy.
No, you're just funny. It's funny, you know, the way you tell the story and everything.
Funny how?
There are only a few companies that I truly believe attempt to push the boundaries of technology and deliver excellent products. FiiO, a Chinese manufacturer of audio-based gear in Guangzhou, is certainly one of them. Time and again, they manage to impress me, and that's not an easy feat considering how jaded I've become about the industry at large over the last few years. In other words, audio has become almost too much of a good thing, but my undying love for music remains. Thus why we're still here reviewing things that output sound and helping you navigate the uncharted waters of confusion. And as much as I love headphones and always will, I've really come to appreciate good reference monitors over the last couple of years. So I was pretty ecstatic when Atmos Audio offered to send me over the SP3. In the box, you'll discover the primary speaker. This contains all of the buttons and knobs, the secondary speaker, a power adapter, an AC power cable, an RCA to 3.5mm cable, the primary and secondary speakers connecting cable, and two sets of rubber bases, one at 0 degrees and one at 7 degrees. These are fantastic and help protect the speakers while elevating them a bit if need be. Also included is the obligatory user's manual in a slew of different languages. Build. Coming in at a robust and somewhat eye-popping for their size, 1,840 grams, these puppies are really packing. Typically, the primary speaker is fairly heavy since it contains all of the main internals, but even the SP3's secondary homie feels incredibly rugged at 1,660 grams. This is in stark contrast to the PreSonus Aeris E3.5, a fantastic budget monitor but also incredibly light. Compared to the SP3, it feels like something you'd find in the toy section of your local Walmart. The SP3 contains aluminum alloy for the cabinets, utilizing liquid die casting in addition to a 3.5-inch carbon fiber woofer and 1-inch silk tweeter. These larger than average woofers and tweeters have an advantage over others in their class, providing better soundstage, timbre, resolution, etc. In addition, transient response is fairly remarkable for a speaker of this size and even competes with much larger monitors. In other words, these are incredibly fast and faithfully reproduce even the swiftest genres, from metal to rock, EDM, and anything in between. Sound. I'll leave links to my playlist below. Sources include Spotify, FLAC, PS4, and YouTube. Amp DACs used include AudioQuest Dragonfly Red, FiiO K9, and FiiO K19. Games include Uncharted 3, basically all the Fallouts, and more to come. I've basically been using these over the past year or so with anything and everything that I watch or listen to on Prime, Max, etc. I did a side-by-side with my Yamaha HS7 in real time, and I was astonished that the SP3 almost matched it pound for pound in resolution, neutrality, and overall realism. Do keep in mind that my HS7 is paired with a Bolt 2 and utilizes a balanced connection, but single-ended, the SP3 sounds nearly as good. This is staggering when you consider it's roughly a quarter of the size of the Yammies and has no business sounding this professional. Moreover, the SP3 somehow packs 80 watts of total power versus 95 watts for the HS7. That's fairly shocking and just another reason why these are such a big deal despite their tiny footprint. I've demoed enough gear to know almost instinctively when something sounds good or not the moment I press play, and the SP3 blew me away. The 1-inch silk tweeter employing a copper-clad aluminum voice coil marvelously reproduces the treble region, providing a remarkable amount of air after 10 kHz and a sense of sparkle that makes me want to get up and shake my ass. In fact, when Mount Kimby's Break Well broke into the finale at 2:35, that's exactly what I did. I danced around naked in my apartment with the blinds open. This is even more astounding when you consider that these speakers somehow fill up the entire space, providing an almost concert hall-like illusion. Okay, not that grand, but for the price, you can't argue with it. It's simply breathtaking how good these sound, and for around $300, the performance perfectly matches the price you're paying. Another great quality about the company. If you can believe it, these punch above their price bracket and sound almost as good as my HS7. If I had to compare the two, I'd say the HS7 is slightly cleaner, airier, and more neutral, but it's a really close call. When I first went back and forth, I said to myself, man, these sound really similar. After looking at a graph, it made sense. They're both tuned almost identically, and the engineers have an incredibly good understanding of how frequency response works. And they include a bass knob so you can dial in on your preferred amount when you're just maxing and relaxing. Normally this is kind of a gimmick, but because the low end and overall sound in general are both tuned correctly, a bass knob makes perfect sense and is a wonderful add-on. As far as the raw bass response, all of the emphasis is concentrated exactly where it should be, around 60 to 90/100 Hz, followed by a cut in the mud regions of 200 to 300. The sub bass rolls off as it should, as we cannot perceive much below 40 Hz. This allows you to add some sub bass in your mixes if necessary, but because it rolls off, you'll get a more accurate portrayal of what music actually sounds like, even if you're not EQing anything and are just listening casually to your favorite tracks. Again, these are incredibly faithful to the recording and allow you to quickly gauge whether or not something was mixed and mastered correctly. So as a pair of mixing monitors, they're excellent and highly recommended. If you're familiar with this blog, as a producer, I harp endlessly on the importance of this. This is because most companies end up completely obliterating the bass, boosting areas that should be cut, either out of ignorance or simply because they don't give a shit and know most uninformed people will lap it up like stale dog water.
Yes, dog water. Dog water. Ask for it by name. I want dog water.
This has been seen countless times from the god-awful 99 Neo, Black Hole, A10, Nighthawk, M40X, and a slew of other bad sound signatures that make my blood boil just thinking about them.
New dog water.
The SP3 is a wonderful breath of fresh air and has almost completely reinvigorated my love for good products again. In other words, go ahead and soil your undies now if you want, but you'll really be shooting your load off later when you hear them. Contrary to what some of my regular readers and viewers may think, giving negative reviews of products is not actually all that fun. Okay, it can be sometimes, but after a while, it really makes you start to question your sanity. The SP3 does not make me question my sanity. It makes me want to purchase a pair right away. Furthermore, I think these are arguably better than my JBL LSR 305. My very first monitor and something I look back fondly on with a lot of love. And if all that wasn't enough, they also light up. If, like me, you're a sucker for colors and love, it's simply the cherry on top of an amazingly well-crafted cake. Back panel. Turning the unit around, we're greeted with a volume dial, bass dial, -8 dB, 0 dB, the input button, toggles line or RCA, the RGB button, the 3.5mm line input, RCA inputs, the power button, DC 24 volt power jack, and the out to left speaker jack. Double click the RGB button to cycle light effects. Mode 1 pulsates, magenta, yellow, and cyan, with the final click being a static rainbow if you really want to gay it up. Mode 2 pulsates all of the colors. The bass is also rear ported, so try to situate them as far away from the wall as you can. Connecting them is quite simple. If you don't have a preamp or something that doubles as a preamp, you can theoretically use your PC's 3.5mm line out, but this can have varying effects depending on the quality of your internal sound card, also referred to as a DAC or digital to analog converter. Right now I'm using the Audio Quest Dragonfly Red as the preamp, but you don't need to spend that much to get a great conversion. I may opt for something like FiiO's own K3, which I also have, an Atom, or something similar in the $100 range. Do note that the Atom is an amp only and needs a separate DAC. Again, try your PC/laptop first as the DAC with the supplied RCA to 3.5mm cable and see how it sounds. If you experience crackling, static, or generally poor/weak sound output, then consider something else. If you need help, just leave a comment below. With the Dragonfly Red, I'm only on about 36 out of 100, and the knob on the back of the SP3 is set to halfway. In other words, there's loads of headroom here. You won't have to worry, as these pack quite a ridiculous punch. Placement. You can situate them straight, but to get the best sound, angle them in so the configuration forms an equilateral triangle to your melon, making sure the tweeters are specifically at about ear level. This creates an amazing soundstage that helps in portraying the elements of a track in the places that they were recorded, but also generally results in an overall immersive, atmospheric, and engaging listening experience. It also helps in determining who did a good job of panning instruments, voices, and other miscellaneous sounds in the mix versus who didn't. If you're a producer, use these insights to help improve your own mixes. Closing thoughts. FiiO's SP3 is certainly one of the best products I've ever reviewed and will be added to my best budget home studio monitors for mixing list ASAP. They're also perfect for casual listening if your goal is to actually hear what's going on in your favorite tracks. Furthermore, they're built like a damn jet engine, easily fit anywhere you want, and light up like a Nicolay with a fat blunt in his mouth. Yes indeedy, this is one of the easiest recommendations I'll ever make, and I can't say enough good things about them. And that's it, but always remember to keep it dummy thick. Aight?
I want dog water.
I want dog water.